Now we're going to look at how to create the frame for your bicycle. This is just a sample bicycle that we're doing to learn the components, how to create using the Loft feature in Autodesk Inventor. So I'm going to go to Part, New Part. I want to make sure that I'm in the bicycle project pathway, and then I'm going to create a new part, and I think I just clicked it an extra time. Basically, we're going to start by putting a sketch, and we're going to do it on the front frame, front plane, and I'm going to move my mouse down and pull this, press down on the wheel for the mouse, and pull this. We're going to work in the front quadrant. So I'm going to begin by drawing a vertical line from here. I'm going up 12 inches. Now I'm going to zoom out and pull it down again. I'm going to hit escape to get off of deselect line because I'm not going to put a line on this end point. I'm going to move this. If you get in the habit of moving your dimensions off of the part, away from it slightly, doesn't have to go way away. Now I'm going to just anywhere along in here click, and I'm going to draw a line that is sloped, and I want that line to be 24 inches. That line is an aligned dimension, meaning it is at an angle. So I'm going to hit delete just to show you. If I don't put the dimension on there to begin with, and if I come back to dimension it, notice it gives me a horizontal dimension. So what you have to do is right click and choose aligned, and that will give you the correct dimension. So always enter the numbers, don't just go with zooming in and out and moving your mouse to get the dimension. Next thing I'm going to do is dimension from this endpoint to this endpoint, and I'm going to pull it out right here, and that is going to be 2 inches. I'm just guessing at what the dimensions need to be for this. You will later on get to create your own. Now I'm going to put an angle on here, and I clicked each line. I clicked dimension and then clicked the 2 lines, and now I click once, and I'm going to say I'm going to set that at 85 degrees. One more line is going to come down, and I'm just picking anywhere right here to do it, and it's going to come down and then come up, and actually I'm going to go past that, and I'm clicking, and I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to put aligned dimensions on those, and so when I pull it down, it's horizontal. I want it to be aligned. Excuse me. I want that to be a 20-inch dimension, and I want this one to be aligned as well, and it remembered that I had an aligned dimension, and I want that to be 22 inches. Now I need to put an angle constraint between this line and this line, and that is 50 degrees. Then I want to make a coincident constraint. Coincidence where 2 things meet up. And so I want the end point of this line and then this line all together to meet up, and it pops it into place. Finally, I've got one more line I'm going to put on there, and it's going to go also to this point, from this point straight down, and that is going to be 7 inches. And I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to pull that over here. So now I'm going to put an angle constraint, angle dimension, between this and that one is going to be 60 degrees. I now have the frame for my part, and if I get escape to get off of dimension, deselect dimension, I can try to drag. Oh, I can pull this. I forgot. Always check that. I forgot to dimension from this point to the top. So I'm going to move this dimension, get the little cross and pull it out. I'm sorry. I'm going to dimension from this end point to that end point, and that should be 8 inches. I should have looked. It should have, all of my lines need to be blue. We like Hornet blue. We get things fully dimensioned and locked down so that when you try to drag it, you've got it exactly where you want it. So I'm going to finish the sketch. Now I'm going to start to use my Loft feature. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plane on the end of this, and it needs to be that plane that's perpendicular. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. That plane, if I look at it from the top, it is perpendicular to, you can see it, to that line. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tilt it so that I can see it really well. I'm going to put another plane on that point that's also perpendicular. I'm going to make a sketch between these two, and I'm going to put a circle on this plane. I've got to start a sketch on this plane, and then I'm going to put a circle on it. I have to project the geometry first. Project the geometry for the center mark. You can tilt it and you can see, oh yes, I'm working on this one. Now I'm going to put in a circle. And it's going to have a diameter of 2 inches. I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to start a sketch on this other plane. I have to tilt it so that I can see, yes, I'm working on that one. You can see my axes. So project the geometry, always do that for the end point. And now start your circle with the center concentric or coincident with that point. Again, 2 inches. I'm going to finish that sketch. Excuse me. And I'm going to go to 3D model, and I'm going to loft between the two. Here's loft. So I'm going to loft from this circle to this circle and say OK. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to drill a hole through it because on a bicycle frame, I believe the frame is going to be hollow. So we're going to do a concentric hole, which means it's very easy. I say, where do I want it? Oh, I want it on this, and I want the size of it to be 1.75, and I need it to have a concentric reference. Concentric means it shares the same center point, so I can either pick this circle or I could pick the cylinder, whatever's the easiest. And you can see that it lines that hole up. If you zoom in, you can see it lines it up perfectly. And I want to make my distance to go right here. I want my distance to go through all for that one. So I say, OK. Now I'm going to click the home button. You can see we have the start of our frame. Now we need to loft on all of these other lines as well. So sometimes our previous loft gets in the way. So I'm going to right click on loft in the browser bar and suppress the feature. The next thing I'm going to do is put a plane, and I want to put that, and I'll say on this point, and I've got to make sure that I get, be careful, if you pick this one, highlight the wrong one, you will get the wrong plane. So I want that plane. I'm going to start a sketch on that plane, and it's turned, so I'm going to use the wheel of my mouse. I'm going to zoom out, pull it back around so that I can see it. I'm just grabbing a corner and turning. Yes, there's the plane with the sketch. Project the geometry for that end point. Put your circle on there. Make it 2 inches. Now we're going to do the same thing for this other one. I'm going to go back to 3D. I'm going to finish this sketch. Go back to plane. At that end point, I want to put a plane that is perpendicular to this line. Now I'm going to go to start a sketch on this plane. Start a sketch on that plane. Project the geometry. Again, I'm going to turn it so that I can see. I want that end point. Now make a circle that is coincident with the center with that other point. And again, I'm ready to loft. So finish the sketch. Loft between the two circles. Lofts can get very fancy. This is a very simple one for you to learn. Now we're going to drill our hole through this one. This time I'm still going to use a concentric hole. The plane I want it on is right here. I also want the same size, 1.75. I want it concentric reference. I can choose my circle. But instead of telling it through all, if I go all the way through, it's going to go through my other loft. So I want to tell it a set distance. And the length of this hole is going to be 24 inches to match up with that line segment that we did. And that way it will stop at the end of that line segment, which is the center of the other loft that we did. I'm going to suppress the geometry. I'm right-clicking, choosing suppress features. Now I'm working my way around. I'm going to go to the top here and do the exact same thing. Place a plane on the end point of this. It needs to be perpendicular, and it is. I can look at it and see, yeah, that's perpendicular by rotating, grabbing. I do it usually by grabbing my navigation cube. Put a sketch on the plane. Project the geometry for that endpoint. I'm going to zoom in. I can tilt it if I need to a little bit so that I can see, yes, it's right here. And now I'm going to draw my circle on that endpoint, make it 2 inches. I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to go to the other end of this line segment and do the same thing. Put a point right there. Yeah, I need to make sure that is perpendicular, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to look at it. Yes, that is going to be perpendicular. I'm going to tilt it a little bit again to make it a little easier for me to see. I'm going to put a sketch on this plane. And I'm going to zoom out and tilt it to find, there it is. From that sketch, I'm going to project the geometry of that endpoint, put on my circle that is 2 inches. Click that endpoint. Click circle first. Get that center so that it is coincident, make that 2. And I can finish my sketch, and I can see I've got the 2 circles. I need to loft. Now, I'm going to go from here to here, and there it is. Now, I'm going to drill my hole through there. I'm going to say I want a concentric hole. So I want to choose this surface, and I need it to go through all. And I'm going to say my concentric reference is right here. It's going to center it up, and I say OK. Now I'm going to suppress this one. So I have now done this loft, and this loft. I'll do this one next, and then I will do this one. Now, when I do this one, I'm going to say, hey, I want a plane right here that's going to be perpendicular. I might need to rotate it a little bit so that I can see. There it is. You can zoom it in. Start here with a sketch. Now I'm going to rotate it to make sure I'm looking at, okay, the one that I want is over here. You can see your axes for your sketch. project the geometry for the end point, draw a circle on there, 2 inches. Now, I had someone ask me, well, why can't you use extrusion? You actually could, since you know the distance that you're going to go, but I wanted you to learn how to loft between 2 figures. So we're going to save a little time, I'm going to use extrusion now. I'm going to extrude this, and it needs to go the opposite direction. I can either change the direction here, I need it to go there, and I need it to go a distance that is to the next surface. Well, that's hard to see, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to turn on this last loft. So I'm going to unsuppress that. Now, when I extrude, I'm going to say go to the next. Here's the amount. I need to flip it around. And notice it goes to that next surface. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to extrude, I'm going to cut my hole through that is concentric. There is where it is, and I want my concentric reference to be right here. And what I'm going to do is I want to tell it I need to go 7 inches. If you go all the way through, it goes through there. You don't want to cut through the rest. I want to just go back to that point and say OK or apply. If you say OK, it goes away. If you say apply, then you have to hit the cancel button. And so now we are down to 1 more. And to save a little time, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did a moment ago. I'm going to come over here to this one, add a plane to this point. Now I have to be careful when I do it to make sure that I'm grabbing a plane that is perpendicular. You saw it wiggle around. So there it is. I'm going to start a sketch on this plane, and I'm going to come in. I need to see, here we are. If I look at, then I'm going to project the geometry for this point. And now I'm going to create a circle, and it will be 2 inches. To save time, I'm going to use the extrude feature now. Extrude this surface, and I want to go, and I'll tell it that I want it to go a distance to the next. And so I'm going to say OK. And it didn't like that. So what I'm going to do, doesn't extend all the way, so I'm going to tell it a definite distance. I'm going to go extrude. I know the distance is going to be 20 inches. I have to pick the profile that I want to extrude, and that's it. The distance is 20 inches. I'm going to put the hole in the end of that. I want to have a concentric, shares the same center point. I want a concentric hole on this, and I want the distance to 0.75. I want the distance to go a distance of 20. And I need the concentric reference, which is right here. And I say OK. Now we have extruded this. I'm going to turn on all the visibility, or unsuppress the features. Unsuppress. You can see you've got your basic frame made, but we've got a little issue right here. We've got one more feature that we need to learn. We've got to fill up this. So we're going to learn the Revolve feature. So what I'm going to do is start by putting a sketch, zoom in, and click this wall right there. Now, if I tilt it, I need to go back to where I can see that wall, and it's over here, so I'm going to tilt my part until I can see it. And now what I'm going to do is project the geometry for this wall. So I have to zoom in. I want to get that wall right there. I'm going to use the Revolve feature. I didn't have to draw anything. I just projected the geometry, so I know it'll be perfect. I'm going to revolve this shape, and it's going to ask me now what axis do I revolve around. The axis that I want to use is this one. Now, this is a full revolve, which would mean 360 degrees. You can see that. We don't need it to go all the way around. What we want to do is we want to go to, and I'm going to select this. You could have chosen an angle and said how many degrees you want, but the fastest is just to say 2. And I'm going to say OK. Or if you say 2 next, then it may also do it. We'll say OK. And so that closed it up perfectly. We always want to try to clean up our sketches, our models. So we're going to take this sketch. If I expand the browser bar, you can see which sketches I've got for what. And we've reused sketch 1. I'm going to right click and take the visibility off of that, and it cleans it up. I'm going to leave all these planes. Most of them are not visible or won't be, but we may use them for when we begin our assembly. So we're going to go to File, and we're going to Save As. And if you've saved it in your bicycle project pathway, it should save in the right location. You can down arrow. Mine is in E, IED bicycle. Yours will be H, IED, your 9131 or 6303 number, IED bicycle. And then you're going to name this as sample frame, okay? And the extension will be a .ipt. I want you to save this. Now, to actually submit your bicycle frame, I want to see how you did this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do excuse me, a print screen. So I want you to function, print your screen. No, we won't do it that way.